If you stop for even 1 second in America, it feels like the world passes you by. Miss one opportunity, miss one trend, miss one promotion, take one break, and suddenly, someone younger, faster, louder is already ahead of you. That quiet panic, that invisible timer ticking in the background of every ambition, that's the real American soundtrack, and almost nobody talks about it. Because in America, falling behind doesn't just feel inconvenient. It feels like failure. It feels like disappearing. It feels like you're becoming irrelevant in a country that worships momentum. But here's the question I want you to sit with. Who decided we're all in the same race? From childhood, Americans are trained to measure themselves. Grades are ranked. Sports are competitive. College admissions are a battlefield. Resumes start building before adulthood even begins. You're not just encouraged to succeed. You're encouraged to succeed faster, earlier, bigger. And if you don't, there's that quiet voice. You're behind. Behind your classmates. Behind your coworkers. Behind your friends who are buying houses. Behind influencers who are your age, all already made it. Behind entrepreneurs who retired at 30. Behind couples who are already married. Behind parents who have it all figured out. But behind what, exactly? America is built on acceleration. It's a country obsessed with growth charts, GDP growth, career growth, social media growth, personal development growth. If you're not growing, you're stagnating. And stagnation is almost treated like decay. Think about how often people ask, what's next? You graduate. What's next? You get a job. What's next? You get married. What's next? You buy a house. What's next? You hit a milestone. What's next? There's no arrival, only advancement. And that creates a culture where slowing down feels dangerous. In many cultures, life is cyclical. In America, life is linear, forward, always forward. You're supposed to move out early, be independent early, make money early, figure yourself out early. If you're still figuring things out in your 30s, people start whispering. Why? Because American identity is deeply tied to productivity. Who are you? Often, the answer is your job. What do you do? That question defines your social value. Your career isn't just how you survive. It's how you're ranked. So if someone else climbs higher than you, faster than you, it feels personal. And social media made it worse. Before, comparison was local. Now it's global. You're not just comparing yourself to your neighbor. You're comparing yourself to a 22-year-old millionaire in Miami, a tech founder in Silicon Valley, a fitness influencer in Los Angeles, a crypto investor in New York. And algorithms don't show average lives. They show highlight reels. So Americans wake up every day scrolling through curated success, stories, promotions, engagement rings, new cars, exotic vacations. Day in my life as a six-figure entrepreneur at 24. And subconsciously, the mind whispers, you're behind. But behind his timeline, there's another layer. America sells the dream that anything is possible. That's powerful. It fuels innovation. It creates billion-dollar companies. It inspires people to move across the world for opportunity. But it also creates pressure. Because if anything is possible, then why haven't you done it yet? If success is available to everyone, then failure must be your fault. That belief makes falling behind terrifying. It's not just that you're slower. It's that you're responsible. Do you think that pressure motivates people or quietly exhausts them? Look at hustle culture, the glorification of being busy, the pride in being sleep deprived. The phrase, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Rest is treated like weakness. Breaks are treated like laziness. And if you take time off, someone else might outwork you. In Silicon Valley, they say if you're not building something, you're being disrupted by someone who is. That mentality spreads everywhere. Artists feel behind if they're not producing. Students feel behind if they're not interning. Employees feel behind if they're not networking. Creators feel behind if they're not posting daily. Even relationships feel competitive. Who got married first? Who had kids first? Who bought property first? It becomes less about living and more about pacing. But here's something uncomfortable. Many Americans aren't actually chasing their own goals. They're chasing timelines. A timeline that says, graduate by 22, career by 25, marriage by 30, financial security by 35, peak by 40. And if you deviate, anxiety creeps in. Have you ever felt embarrassed because someone younger than you achieved something you haven't yet? Why does age matter so much in measuring progress? Part of it comes from the American myth of youth dominance, the obsession with 30 under. 30, the constant spotlight on young founders, young athletes, young prodigies. The narrative says if you haven't made it early, you might miss your window. So turning 25 feels like a deadline. Turning 30 feels like a warning. Turning 40 feels like evaluation. But who created these invisible expiration dates? Historically, America rewarded speed. Industrialization rewarded output. Capitalism rewarded expansion. The faster you produce, the more you earn. That mindset leaked into personal identity. Speed equals value. Slowness equals risk. And when speed defines value, anyone moving slower feels like they're falling, but falling behind compared to what standard? Here's something else rarely discussed. America has less social safety nets than many other developed nations. Healthcare tied to employment, education tied to debt, retirement tied to investments. That means falling behind isn't just emotional. It can be financially dangerous. If you lose your job, your insurance might go with it. If you don't invest early, retirement feels uncertain. If you don't earn enough, student loans linger. So fear isn't irrational. It's structural. Do you think Americans would feel less pressure if basic security felt guaranteed? Compare that to countries where healthcare is universal and higher. Education is subsidized. The urgency shifts. The pace shifts. The definition of behind shifts. In America, independence is expected early. Moving back home as an adult often carries stigma. Financial dependence feels shameful. So everyone rushes to prove autonomy. But rushing often leads to burnout. And burnout fuels another fear, irrelevance. In fast-moving industries, skills expire quickly. Technology evolves. Trends change. New platforms emerge. If you're not adapting constantly, you're outdated. That creates a permanent state of alertness. Learn more, do more, be more, earn more, or else. But here's the irony. Many Americans who are ahead don't feel ahead. The lawyer making 6 figures worries about partners making 7. The entrepreneur with 1 million followers worries about losing engagement. The homeowner worries about rising costs. The executive worries about younger talent replacing them. The ladder has no top, only higher rungs. So is anyone actually ahead? Or are most people just afraid of sliding down? And then there's identity. In America, self-worth is often individual, not collective. Success is personal. Failure is personal. That means falling behind feels isolating. There's less cultural permission to say, I'm struggling. Instead, people curate resilience. I'm grinding. I'm building. I'm leveling up, even when they're exhausted. What if falling behind isn't the real fear? What if the real fear is being seen as average? Because average in America feels invisible. There's so much emphasis on standing out, being unique, being exceptional, being extraordinary, awards, recognition, spotlight. But statistically, most people are average. And that's okay. But culturally, it's uncomfortable. Do you think the pressure to be extraordinary pushes people forward or pulls them into constant anxiety? Another hidden factor is mobility. America is geographically large and socially mobile. People move cities for opportunity. They reinvent careers. They pivot industries. Reinvention is admired, but reinvention also means constant comparison. You're always meeting new groups, new benchmarks, new standards. You can't just settle into one stable identity. And then there's debt culture. Credit cards, mortgages, student loans, car payments. Buy now, pay later. Many Americans are living slightly ahead of their actual earnings, which means falling behind financially can trigger panic fast. So people work harder to maintain the image of stability. Because in a society that markets lifestyle constantly, appearances matter. Have you noticed how success in America often has to look visible? Big weddings, big houses, big announcements, big milestones. Quiet success doesn't get celebrated as loudly. So people chase visible proof they're not behind. But here's a question most people avoid. What if you stop measuring yourself against anyone else for 1 year? No comparing salaries. No comparing timelines. No comparing relationships. No comparing social media growth. Would you feel lighter or lost? Because sometimes the race gives people direction. It gives urgency. It gives structure. If there's no race, who are you running against? Maybe the fear of falling behind is also fear of standing still long enough to confront yourself. Without comparison, you're left with deeper questions. What do I actually want? Whose definition of success am I chasing? If nobody was watching, would I still want this? That silence can be uncomfortable. So the race continues, and America keeps moving. Faster internet, faster deliveries, faster promotions, faster fame. But humans haven't evolved to process life at algorithm speed. So anxiety becomes normalized. Therapy becomes normalized. Self-help becomes normalized. Optimization becomes normalized. Everything becomes about upgrading. Even rest becomes productive. Productive rest. Optimized sleep. Biohacking recovery. Even relaxation competes. And the deeper fear underneath it all, that someone else is becoming better while you pause. Let me ask you something honestly. Have you ever achieved something you once dreamed of and immediately felt the need to chase the next thing? Why couldn't you just enjoy it? That's the American acceleration effect. Achievement doesn't end pressure. It raises the standard. And yet, despite all this fear, America is still one of the most innovative countries in the world. So is the fear destructive or catalytic? Maybe it's both. Fear of falling behind creates drive. It creates startups. It creates art. It creates resilience. It creates ambition. But unmanaged fear creates burnout, comparison, imposter syndrome, loneliness. And loneliness is growing. Because when everyone is competing, collaboration becomes conditional. Friendships subtly compare salaries. Co-workers subtly compete. Neighbors subtly judge, even if nobody says it out loud. And then people feel alone in their anxiety, because nobody wants to admit they're afraid of being left behind. So let's talk about it openly. Have you ever delayed trying something because you felt you were too late? Have you ever thought, if I haven't started by now, what's the point? Where did that belief come from? History is filled with late bloomers, founders who started at 40, writers who published at 50, athletes who peak later than expected. But those stories aren't marketed as aggressively as teenage prodigies, because urgency sells better than patience. And capitalism thrives on urgency. Limited time, limited stock. Act now, don't miss out. FOMO isn't accidental, it's engineered. So when Americans fear falling behind, they're not irrational. They're responding to a system designed to reward speed and punish delay. But here's the paradox. Life isn't a synchronized race. Some people start early and burn out. Some start late and sustain. Some pivot entirely. Some choose slower paths intentionally. But the loudest narratives dominate perception. So what would change if America celebrated steadiness as much as speed? If we honored consistency over virality? If we normalized different timelines? Would ambition disappear? Or would it become healthier? Because here's the truth no algorithm highlights. You can be moving forward quietly. You can be progressing internally. You can be building foundations no one sees. And still not be behind. But that requires redefining ahead. Ahead of who? Ahead toward what? Ahead according to whose metric? When Americans fear falling behind, they're often fearing social disconnection, status loss, financial instability, identity collapse. Not just being slower. It's deeper than that. It's fear of becoming invisible in a society that values visibility. So maybe the question isn't why Americans fear falling behind. Maybe the better question is, what would happen if they stopped running for a moment? Would the world actually leave them behind? Or would they finally discover their own pace? I want to know what you think. Do you feel like you're in a race right now? Who are you comparing yourself to? If you could design your own timeline with no pressure, what would it look like? And do you believe fear has helped you more than it has hurt you? Because until we question the race, We'll keep sprinting without asking where we're going. And maybe the bravest thing in a culture obsessed with speed is choosing not to panic when you slow down.